Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in Monroe County, Florida say that a 33-year-old inmate is facing an additional charge this week after he attacked his cellmate, a beating he blamed on the cellmate's bathroom habits. According to reports, the incident took place on the night of November 4th at the Monroe County Detention Center in Key West. It began when Christopher Kalin allegedly began punching 57-year-old Amado Dominguez Quevedo in the face and ribs. The attack left the 57-year-old with missing teeth, a broken rib, as well as other injuries to his face. At the hospital, he claimed he had no idea why he'd been attacked. However, when officers questioned Kalin, he quickly offered up a motive. He said that he had been upset by Quevedo's flatulence and his refusal to courtesy flush while using the toilet. For those unfamiliar with toilet terminology, a courtesy flush is one that happens partway through using the bathroom in order to reduce the smell. Kalin has now been charged with aggravated battery by an inmate and is scheduled to be arraigned on November 19th. He has also been ordered to have no contact with Quevedo.
Authorities in Waller County, Texas say that a local teenager is facing several felony charges this week, more than a month after he collided into a group of cyclists while trying to pull off a dangerous maneuver on the road. According to reports, the incident took place on the afternoon of September 25th, when the 16-year-old suspect noticed a few groups of cyclists who were training for a marathon on Highway 290. At some point, the teenager, who was driving a black Ford F-150, decided he was going to try and spray some of them with exhaust fumes from his truck, a technique known as a roll coal, or rolling coal. However, when the teenager attempted to carry this out, he lost control of his vehicle, sending him slamming into 6 of the cyclists. Several of the cyclists were seriously injured as a result of the dangerous incident, with 2 of them having to be airlifted to the hospital. At the time of this recording, it is said that 3 still remain in the hospital 6 weeks later. When news of the story initially broke back in September, it generated further outrage when it was learned that the 16-year-old was allowed to leave the scene without any charges or even a citation after speaking with officers who responded to the crash. It's not clear why this was allowed to happen, though there have been accusations that the teenage suspect has unspecified connections to officials in Waller City. Following a 6-week investigation, police announced on November 8th that they had charged the teenager with 6 counts of felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, 1 for each of the cyclists that was hit. They also announced that the 16-year-old had turned himself into police and had been detained without incident.
Authorities in San Diego County, California say that 1 person is dead this week and 5 others have been arrested following the early morning home invasion of a local residence. According to reports, the incident began at approximately 1:15 a.m. on November 10th at a home on Moonstone Bay Drive in the city of Oceanside. That's when the 6 suspects, more than one of whom was allegedly armed, attempted to break in and rob the homeowner. Once the suspects were inside, a struggle ensued, causing the homeowner, who has not been identified by name, to grab his own gun. He then began to shoot at the intruders, who allegedly returned fire. At some point, one of the suspects, identified only as a 31-year-old man, was struck by a bullet fired by the homeowner. After this, the rest of the suspects fled. When police arrived at the scene, they attempted to administer first aid to the 31-year-old suspect, but he died from result of his injuries. A short time later, a vehicle was pulled over nearby that supposedly contained the rest of the fleeing suspects. One of them had also sustained a gunshot wound, though his injuries are said to be non-life-threatening. The 5 suspects were arrested and have since been identified as 29-year-old Deshaun Ingram, 21-year-old Eric Dunnigan, 21-year-old Michael Simmons, 24-year-old Jalen Harvey, and 25-year-old Sidney Tucker. In addition to robbery charges, all 5 suspects are now facing murder charges in connection with the death of their 31-year-old accomplice. Even though the suspects did not shoot the 31-year-old, they are accused of being involved in the crime that led to his death. At the current time, the homeowner is not facing any charges and is not suspected of a crime.
Authorities in Washington state say that a 39-year-old man has been sentenced to almost 2 years in prison this week after he was convicted of charges related to illegal logging. According to reports, between April and August of 2018, Justin Andrew Wilk and his accomplices were responsible for cutting down several big-leaf maple trees in the Olympic National Forest near Elk Lake. The illegally harvested wood was then transported to a mill in Tumwater, where Wilk forged permits to sell it. This type of maple is reportedly highly sought after for use in musical instruments. Wilkes' 20-month sentence came after a landmark federal trial in which prosecutors used tree DNA as evidence for the first time. The DNA was used to match wood that Wilkes sold with the stumps of poached trees that had been illegally cut in the Elk Lake area. By agreeing to admit to conspiracy, theft of public property, trafficking in unlawfully harvested timber, and other charges, Wilk was able to avoid other charges related to a 3,300-acre wildfire that he is accused of starting during the time that he was illegally harvesting the wood. According to reports, the fire started when Wilk attempted to destroy a wasp nest at the base of one of the maple trees by spraying it with insecticide and gasoline and setting it ablaze. It was dubbed the Maple Blaze and cost authorities an estimated $4.4 million to extinguish. In addition to Wilkes' 20-month sentence, he was ordered to forfeit the profits of his illegal logging scheme, as well as pay restitution to the United States Forest Service. The amount of that restitution has yet to be decided.
Authorities in Hamilton County, Ohio, say that a woman and her family are safe this week following a terrifying attempted home invasion by a neighbor. According to reports, Megan Allen and her family had only recently moved into their home on Drake Street when one neighbor in particular stood out to her, 29-year-old Jorge Chavez Reynoso. Initially, things started off friendly between Allen and Reynoso. He offered to mow her lawn and seemed like a nice enough person. However, Allen's feelings towards Reynoso started to change when it began to seem like he was a little too eager to talk to her, and he started to make unwanted compliments that made her feel uncomfortable. Deciding to trust her gut feeling, Allen had a Ring doorbell camera installed at her house on November 5th. Sure enough, just after midnight on November 8th, the new doorbell camera picked up activity outside the house. According to Allen, when she looked at the footage to see what was going on, she realized Reynoso was at her front door trying to open it with a knife. Allen called the police, and Reynoso was arrested a short time later in some nearby woods. He claimed that he was at the door because he was trying to save Allen from a big man he saw. Reynoso has now been charged with attempted burglary, obstructing official business, criminal trespass, and carrying a concealed weapon. Allen says she has no idea what Reynoso was planning to do if he made it inside, but that she is not going to let the ordeal ruin her new home.
Representatives from the NYPD say that they are once again on the hunt for the woman dubbed the Bronx Zoo Cat Lady this week after she allegedly tried to make her way into the zoo's lion enclosure for a second time. Viewers familiar with our channel might remember that we covered the story of Maya Autry in a previous video sometime last year. The story initially began in September of 2019, when a viral video of a then 32-year-old Autry was captured of her climbing into the lion enclosure at the Bronx Zoo and dancing in front of the lions. Though Autry was not hurt, her behavior was obviously extremely dangerous for both her and the animals, and a warrant was put out for her arrest. She eventually turned herself into police, though bizarrely claimed that she never feared for her life during the encounter because the lion captured in the video loved her. Though Autry ended up pleading guilty to criminal trespassing charges, she managed to avoid jail time by promising to stay away from the zoo. However, it seems that for whatever reason, she was unwilling to keep that promise. A little bit before 4 p.m. on November 8th, Autry was photographed once again trying to get into the lion enclosure. Though she apparently didn't get quite as far this time and was still separated from the lions by a moat, she still managed to get close enough to taunt the animals after climbing over a small fence. Dressed in a blonde wig, a low-cut party dress, white stockings, and a leopard print shawl, Autry was heard shouting, "King, I love you. I came back for you." She then proceeded to throw 2 bouquets of roses at the animals, as well as several $100 bills, while also wiggling her behind in the lion's direction. By the time authorities arrived, Autry was gone. Police have since released images of the bizarre stunt and say that they are hoping someone who knows Autry can help them to track her down. Anyone with information regarding her whereabouts is encouraged to contact the NYPD or to call Crime Stoppers.
Authorities in Boston say that one person is dead and 3 police officers are injured this week after a shooting following a tense hours-long standoff. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of November 9th at a residence on Ferndale Street in the city's Dorchester neighborhood. Police received a call that a man, identified as 37-year-old Deshaun Wright, had barricaded himself in a family member's apartment there and was now threatening them. When police arrived at the scene, they attempted to negotiate with Wright, leading to a standoff which lasted 6 hours. Finally, after Wright refused to leave the apartment, police entered the building. It was at that point that Wright allegedly shot at them, causing them to return fire. Wright was killed during the exchange, and 3 officers were also shot and sent to the hospital. At the time of this recording, 2 of the officers have been released. It is believed that the 3rd will also survive. It's unclear what led Wright to take his family members hostage, though reports say that he recently got out of prison. He was released in July after serving a sentence of 14 to 16 years for armed assault with intent to murder, possession of a firearm, and being an armed career criminal.
Authorities in St. Louis, Missouri say that they have arrested and charged a 25-year-old suspect with 2 murders this week, but are now investigating whether he might have been involved in further killings. According to reports, Perez Deshay Reed was arrested over the weekend as he traveled from Kansas City, Kansas to St. Louis, Missouri. He was taken into custody as he transferred from an Amtrak train to a bus in the city of Independence. At the current time, Reed has been charged with the first-degree murders of 16-year-old Marnay Haynes on September 13th and the murder of 40-year-old Lester Robinson on September 26th. He has also been charged with 3 counts of armed criminal action and 1 count of first-degree assault for other crimes committed around the same time. However, authorities in both St. Louis and Kansas City say that he may have been involved in as many as 4 additional killings. The murders of 35-year-old Damon Irvin, 25-year-old Deja Farrow, 49-year-old Pamela Abercrombie, and 24-year-old Casey Ross. All of the murders are believed to have taken place between late September and the time of Reed's arrest, and began to come together when investigators in Kansas City contacted their counterparts in St. Louis, identifying Reed as a suspect. At the time of Reed's arrest, detectives say that he was carrying a .40 caliber handgun that matched shell casings found at several of the crime scenes. The shoes he was wearing have also reportedly been tied to some of those crime scenes. At the time of this recording, police say that they are unsure of any motive behind the murders and say that it is unlikely that Reed knew his alleged victims. It is expected that more charges against Reed will be filed in the coming days. That's it for this edition of Crimes of the Week. If you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.